Welcome back to Becoming Her Journey podcast. First of all, I want to say thank you so much to every person who subscribed to my YouTube, that's following my Instagram page, and that is following along and supporting me on my journey. It really means so much because it's been so hard to really put everything into words and to really figure out where to start on this journey. But I'm just going to do it. Okay. So today's going to be a little different because I'm going to start opening the door to my actual story and how this all came about. Right. Um, Not because I'm looking for sympathy, but because I want someone listening to know that they can hear pieces of themselves in this and really understand that they're not alone through this journey. So I have a question for y'all. Have you ever looked back at your life and started realizing that you were really just surviving and not really living? Because that was my reality for a really long time. Who was I before I started healing? I was someone that was in survival. I was someone that was so used to chaos, it became my normal. Like that was what I was born into, right? And I wanted to be loved so badly that I ignored the red flags. I mean, I was like, is it red? Is it pink? Is it fat? Like, what is it? Because I know it's red, but I'm going to pretend like it's not red, right? And I felt like I had to do things to earn love. I felt like, my worth was dependent upon what I could do for other people. And, I felt like I had to do things to earn acceptance from the people that I loved, right? I became the peacemaker, even when it cost me my own peace. And that really became the downfall of my journey because I was so wrapped up in trying to be this perfect person, trying to be everywhere for everybody all the time, spreading myself so thin that I didn't even recognize who I was in the mirror anymore. Like it became so exhausting and overwhelming that I just didn't even know how I was going to continue to move forward with the way that my life was going. When you are raised and born into a family lifestyle that is dysfunctional, that is chaos, that is turmoil, to say the least, you slowly think that all the things that you go through when you're a child is normal, right? And you don't really have anything to compare it to. Like, this is your normal because when you grow up in a dysfunctional household and with a dysfunctional family, all those things become normal, right? And I didn't realize it wasn't normal until I was like hanging out with friends and I saw how their family interacted with each other or how they handled a hard situation. And or when I was around other people and I saw the way their parents interacted with them or how they interacted with their boyfriend or whatever the case may be, I thought that the way I lived was so normal. Like I felt responsible for everybody's emotions. I was the peacemaker. I was the solution maker, the problem solver, right? And it became very apparent that I was afraid to disappoint people. I was afraid to make the wrong move or make the wrong decision because I didn't want to be seen as a failure, essentially. I was ignoring my intuition, mistaking control for love, and losing my identity while trying to keep everyone else happy. And it was a slippery slope that I was on, right? Like I didn't even realize it until I was already knee deep in a situation or I was really struggling to figure out why I felt this way because no one was really showing up for me, right? The people changed, the relationships changed, but the pattern stayed the same. And that's when I realized that I didn't need different people. I needed healing. Um, because people can hurt you, but ultimately you're the person that has to heal yourself, right? Yes, it would be nice to have the person that hurt us, say they're sorry and say all those things. But at least from my experience, that wasn't the case for me. People hurt me with no remorse. People felt like I deserved the pain that they were giving me because they went through their own trauma and they wanted to kind of play get back for all the things that they had been through in their own life. I didn't do anything to deserve the behavior that I was getting from other people, whether that's friends, family, partners, but it always somehow ended up being this same looping pattern that I just couldn't seem to get out of. And it was so frustrating because I was just getting to a point where I was like, what is going on? Why do I feel like I'm dating the same person in a different body? Why do I keep having these same arguments with my friends and with my family members? And I keep saying the same things. I just want to be loved. I want to be appreciated. I want to feel seen. I want to feel like I mean something to somebody. I don't want to be second to last. I don't want to be the last priority. I want to be someone's first priority. And they're not even thinking twice about that, right? Like, because I had always put the people that I loved as my main priority, right? But that was a problem that I was realizing, is that you have to put yourself first. I was allowing everyone else's pain, problems, happiness become like come before my own. And it was starting to be very obvious because I was starting to resent them and I was resenting myself because I knew that I had to make a change, but I just didn't know how like I was going to do that. The turning point for me was when I became a mom, right? Like when you go through things and they're traumatic, it's like, I just learned to take it to the chin. I was just like, you know what? These people are fucked up. These people don't know what they're doing. I'm just gonna have to separate myself. But when you don't change and heal from the inside out, you'll keep attracting those same people. And because I was vulnerable and insecure, I wasn't able to like say, okay, this isn't a person I should be around. This isn't a person I should entertain, whether it's platonic or romantic. But I was still allowing people that I should have never allowed in my life or been a part of the relationship with them. I was still choosing that because I'd rather be with a shitty person than to be alone, right? That was my mindset at the time. But looking back, I feel so sad for that version of me because it was just like, that's not the kind of life you want to live. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the kind of mindset you should want to have when you're trying to build relationships with people. And because I was so desperate to be in love, to feel, appreciated and cared for and all the things, I was choosing to be around bad people than to just be by myself. And I knew that I could not allow my children to see that. I didn't want them to grow up, and I didn't want my daughter to grow up and be like me and pick bad people and just stay because that's what they think is right, and this is what they think love is. And I didn't want my son to grow up and be like the toxic men that I was dating that thought it was okay to hurt women or abuse women or just not treat women the way that they're supposed to be treated, right? Because that was a cycle that I knew that I had to break. And it was something that was so like in my face. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, like it was like a light bulb went off. I realized that they deserve to grow up seeing healthy love. And if that means that I have to exude the healthy love all on my own for a while, then that's just what it's going to be. I can't allow my kids to grow up with dishes being thrown around and me and whoever I'm with is fighting and squaring up and cussing at each other. And it's just a toxic, volatile environment. And that's what I grew up around my family, around even friends and their relationships. Like it seemed like everyone just thought like toxic love was love, like that was it. Oh, that's the struggle love. Oh, that's just what life is. This is what love is. And it was just like, really? Because if this is love, I don't want it. Like I'm good. I'm gonna be honest, like because it's too draining. It was too draining for me mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. And understanding that healing wasn't just for me anymore, but it was for my children. Like they needed someone to show them what that looks like. And for so long, I thought like, okay, I'll stay with my ex-husband, the father of my children. I'll stay with him and I'll make it work because that's what all the women in my family did. They stayed with the men that they had kids with and they tried to make it work, and it was always very toxic and volatile. But hey, right? There it's a two-parent household, whatever, right? But as I reflect back on those times, I hated being around that. I hated seeing my aunt and uncle go at it and having the cops being called every other night and they're always drunk and they're always fighting. I hated seeing my grandma and grandpa argue and fight and watch her get cheated on and have to walk home from the hospital and have to tell me all these stories of all these terrible things that she went through. dealing with the man that she had kids with, but also was married to for the majority of her adult life, right? Like they're still married to this day and they can't stand each other. They literally cannot stand each other. And it was just so heartbreaking to see because people always say, "Oh, don't get divorced, stay with the father of your kids, do this and that." And it's like, but at what cost? At what cost? Because if that means I have to be abused and I have to let my kids watch me be abused and they think that that's normal, like I'm not going to do that and I refuse to do that. And that was something that I was super adamant about, that I knew that I was not going to become that same person and I wasn't going to continue that generational curse. Many people think that healing means you're never going to get hurt again, and that is just not the case, right? You have to choose boundaries and have strict boundaries even when it's hard, right? You have to cut people off and sever relationships that you thought you may have could have seen you're spending the rest of your life with this person, or you thought your mom would always be in your life and be able to watch you at your wedding and watch your kids at their wedding. But the reality is that that's not going to happen when no one else wants to do the work. I was the only one that was willing to say, "Hey, I'm going to stand up and be strong. And I'm going to tell you guys that I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to live in this dysfunction. My kids are not going to see this dysfunction because they're not going to think this is normal." Because me watching that as a child made me feel like it was normal. So when I went out into the world and started dating, I unconsciously attracted men that did the exact same thing as my dad, as my uncle, as my grandfather. And it just was a terrible cycle that it seemed like no one could escape from. Sitting with those uncomfortable emotions, even when you don't feel like it, right? Instead of running from them, you have to sit there and feel it. If you're going to scream, scream. If you're angry, be angry. If you're going to be upset, be upset, or be sad, or be whatever the feeling is, but you have to feel it, right? You can't numb yourself. You can't drink yourself to death. You can't do the drugs. You can't smoke the weed. You can't do things and have these vices that numb you out from your emotions, because at the end of the day, when the alcohol wears off and you're hungover tomorrow, you're still going to feel that. When the weed wears off, you're still going to have all those emotions. It just suppresses it for a short amount of time. And I had to learn how to trust myself. I had to learn how to stand firm on my intuition, stand firm in my discernment, and say, you know what? Even if I'm wrong, I'm still going to bet on myself. Even if it doesn't make sense right now, I'm still going to do what my gut and what my heart and what my mind is telling me to do, because I have to stand firm in the fact that I'm choosing what's best for me. And this is new territory, right? Like, we don't know what we're doing until we're in it, because no one in my lineage has ever decided that they're not going to take this. They never decided that they're going to break generational curses. So I don't have anyone to take advice from. I don't have anyone to say, "Hey, how did you do this? Because I want to do this too." No one was strong enough to stand up and say, "Hey, I'm not going to take this abuse anymore. I'm not going to stay married to you just so I can say I'm married." And so it's really hard at first to trust yourself, but it's so imperative, because you have to be willing to take the leap of faith. And that's exactly what I did. I also had to understand and realize that healing is not linear, right? It's not a straight line. You're not going to heal and just walk off into the sunset and everything's just great and we're all good, and I'm never going to be hurt again, and this is just it. Like, I went through a lot of different healing phases and I still am, because you have to revisit old things that make you feel some kind of way, the triggers that we have, right? We have to revisit those things. We have to continue to bring up different things that happen to us in our lives, and then figure out, why is this triggering me? What emotions am I feeling when I'm thinking about this right now? Why is this still bothering me so much? How can I start understanding these emotions and find a way to cope through it without numbing myself? Go outside with nature, ground with nature, journal, Bible study, prayer, talking to friends and family that you trust, that you can really, that you feel you can lean on in your hard times, right? But one of my biggest things that I really, really had to work on was giving myself grace, even when I was struggling, because I felt like if I didn't do all the things in one day, if I didn't journal, do my Bible study, pray, go on a walk, you know, do the therapy session, do the self help books, self love books, if I wasn't doing all 85 things in one day, then I felt like I was a failure. I felt like I wasn't doing enough for my healing. And my therapist and God had to remind me that, like, hey, calm down. You're good. You're doing actually amazing. You don't need to do 85 things in one day. You're overstimulating yourself. You're doing too much, actually. You have to take it one step at a time. And because I was so used to rushing everything, I was trying to rush my healing without even realizing it. And they're like, "Hey, you got to slow down, right? Like this isn't going to be something where it's going to be a few weeks or a few months or even a few years before you feel like you've gotten to a point of like true healing, right? Or when you feel like you've made more progress than whatever you may have wanted to in the past." While I'm still on this healing journey, and I think that I'll forever be on a healing journey. And it's not to say that I won't ever be fully healed, but what does fully healed really look like, right? There's always going to be something new that happens that could be painful, or that could happen to me, that could trigger something that happened to me when I was only 6 years old or 7 years old. And you don't know that those triggers are going to happen until you're in it, until it happens to you right then and there, right? And that's what I've been learning is that there's going to be days where you feel amazing and you feel like you're on a high. Like you're like, okay, I've been having like 5 really good days or 2 really good days. And then the third day comes and you're like, oh my God, like my life is over. Everything's messed up. Why did I do this? Why did I scream? I didn't do my Bible study today, or I didn't pray today. Maybe that's why my life is going well, or whatever the case may be. And it's so important that you don't spiral. It's so important that you give yourself grace because we're human. We're learning how to be here. We're learning how to heal. We're learning how to stop having the same toxic patterns, stop having the same responses to things that hurt us. Stop having the same answers. Stop dating the same people. Stop dating your type because your type hasn't been working. So let's try another. Like let's be open, right? Like be open to change and being open to receiving love and support from people that you may have never even thought you would get it from. Because for me personally, my healing journey has been me, myself, and I. You know, there are people that are blessed enough to get into a relationship and they heal together, and it's a beautiful thing. I love seeing that. But that just wasn't the case for me. And I think God really had to remind me of that because I kept telling myself, well, I'll find someone that wants to heal too, and we can heal together, and we'll just run off into the sunset and be happily ever after. But the sad reality is that a lot of men and people just in general don't really want to heal. A lot of people rather just pretend like everything's okay and just move on with their day and just, smile and put the mask on, and then they go home and they cry themselves to sleep, or they're super depressed, or they can't be alone. They have to have 5 friends over every day all the time because they can't stand to be alone. They can't stand to just sit in their own discomfort, in their own silence. And being in my isolation period, it's been so rewarding because I used to hate being alone. I used to hate it so bad. And the inner child in me couldn't stand it. But one day God was like, you have to stop running. You have to sit down. You have to face yourself. You have to face these demons that you have within inside of you that have been haunting you. Because if you don't, you're going to continue down this path of destruction. You're going to continue down a path where you keep running across men that are going to use you and abuse you. You're going to keep running into friends that don't know how to pour back into you and only want what you can give them. You're going to keep having arguments with family because they don't really want to be family. They just want to have the perfect image for everyone else. But behind closed doors, our family is falling apart. And so God was like, you need to sit down. You need to reflect. Let's do some shadow work. Let's get into the Bible. Let's pray. Watch a one of your favorite kid shows that you watch when you were a kid, or, do something that makes you happy, right? Like even if it's something small, me and my kids, we love to paint, we love to do arts and crafts, we love to go on nature walks, the pool, the beach, anything that really brings out your inner child, something that really brought you joy when you were a kid. Think of one thing and then say, you know what? I'm going to do that today. I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to get some paint. I'm going to get some stuff. We're going to paint, or I'm going to go and get a book. There is this book I want to go get. It's Mary B. Jones, I think is what it's called. And that was a book series I read when I was a kid. And I want to find it again because it's like those books were like something that I loved when I was a kid. The Magic School Bus, like Finding Nemo, all these little shows that just are like, oh my gosh, it's like a little nostalgic, it's nostalgic. And so it's like, find something that makes you happy, find something that really, stands out to you and just kind of get you back in your childlike energy because that's really what it's about, right? Like, you're not just healing your adult self, you're healing your inner child because your inner child was the first version of you that was hurt. Your inner child was the first child that needed that protection, that needed that love, that needed that support, but she never got it, right? And so, yes, we're an adult now, but she still lives within us. Our inner child lives within all of us. And I don't understand why people don't see that or understand that because it's like, yeah, you may be 55, but you still have an inner child. You always will. We just do. Right. And so I had to remember to not neglect her, be in my childlike energy, be fun, be silly, be goofy, because that's really what life is about. Stop taking life so seriously. And I had to remind myself of that very thing. If your story sounds anything like mine, I want you to know that your story is not over, right? This is literally just the beginning. And the chapters that hurt you don't get to write the ending. We oftentimes feel like, well, this is just it, like I've been hurt and I'm just going to make this my identity. But it doesn't have to be, right? Healing is possible. It's not going to happen overnight, but every step you take towards that brings you peace, right? And peace is so important because in a world full of evil and chaos and darkness, we need love, we need kindness, we need patience, we need peace. So, I really hope that you guys, stick around for my next episode. In the next episode, we're going to go even deeper into the beginning of my story and some of the experiences that shaped me um, into who I am and what shaped me into the world. So, thank you for trusting me with your time. And I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.